My husband always said the office was his second home, and maybe that's why I never questioned the long nights. It started quietly, like most horrors do. A few extra hours, a few late dinners, small lies disguised as tired smiles. I'd watch him leave every morning, coffee in hand, tie perfectly straight, eyes distant. He'd wave from the driveway, the car fading into the early mist that clung to our little street. For years, it was the rhythm of our lives. Simple, predictable, safe. But safe things never last, do they? One Tuesday, the phone rang while I was folding laundry. A polite woman from HR asked if my husband was feeling better. She said the entire team missed him and hoped he'd recover soon. I laughed, confused, told her he wasn't sick. He'd left for work less than an hour ago. The silence that followed was long enough for me to hear her breathing on the other end. Then she whispered, "Trembling, ma'am. He's been marked absent for 3 days." The world tilted. I remember my fingers tightening around the phone, the hum of static, and the sound of my heart pounding louder than the clock on the wall. When he came home that night, I tried to act normal. He kissed me, dropped his bag, smiled like always, but the air around him felt wrong, heavier, colder. When he hugged me, I didn't feel warmth. I felt pressure, like being held underwater. The next morning, I followed him. He left at 6:30, like clockwork, and I drove a few cars behind, careful not to be seen. The city was waking up. Bus stops full, streetlights flickering off, the faint buzz of early life. Returning to the world, I expected him to take the highway to the office downtown, but instead, he turned down a narrow industrial road I'd never noticed before. The fog was thick there, unnaturally so. It rolled between the buildings like it was alive. His car stopped outside an old warehouse, its windows blacked out, a crooked sign barely hanging from one nail. No company name. No lights, just that humming quiet that makes you feel watched. He got out and walked inside without hesitation. I sat there for what felt like an hour before my nerves broke. When I finally gathered the courage to peek through a side window, my breath fogged the glass. But through it, I saw rows of desks, computers flickering with lines of green code, and dozens of people sitting motionless, typing in perfect rhythm. None of them looked up. Not one. And at the far end, I saw him. Or at least, something wearing his face. The way he moved was deliberate, mechanical. His neck turned too far when he looked at the screen. His fingers never stopped typing. I stumbled back, heart racing, and almost tripped over a small mirror lying on the ground outside. When I glanced down, I saw my reflection, except it blinked a second too late. I ran to the car and didn't stop until I was home. That night, when my husband returned, he smelled faintly of metal and dust. When I asked how work was, he said, "Productive," but his voice echoed like it came from somewhere else. Days turned into weeks, and I stopped sleeping. Every night I'd hear him pacing in the hallway, whispering to himself, or maybe to something unseen. Sometimes I'd catch words like replace, align, and upload. I thought about telling someone, but what could I say? That my husband wasn't my husband, that he looked the same but wasn't breathing right. One night, I decided to record him. I hid my phone on the dresser before bed, the lens facing the door, at exactly 3:12 a.m. He got up. His movements were slow but steady, as if pulled by strings. He stood in front of the mirror for nearly 10 minutes, just staring. Then he smiled wide, unnatural, and whispered something. I couldn't hear it clearly, so I replayed it a dozen times. The next morning until the word finally clicked. Almost that night, I pretended to sleep again. I watched through barely opened eyes as he leaned over me, his face inches from mine, his expression blank. His breath smelled like burnt plastic, and then he whispered, "Almost ready." I didn't move, didn't breathe. When morning came, he acted like nothing happened, humming while making coffee, smiling with that same borrowed warmth. But I noticed something new. The reflection in the kitchen window wasn't quite in sync with him. It lingered when he moved. It smiled when he didn't. That's when I realized whatever came home every night was not my husband. It was learning to become him. The next day, I went back to his office building. The real one, downtown. The receptionist looked startled when I mentioned his name. She pulled up his profile and frowned. "He resigned a month ago," she said. "Didn't he tell you?" I felt my stomach drop. She turned the screen toward me. There was a resignation letter, typed, signed with his name, but the signature wasn't right. Too perfect. Like it had been I asked if I could check his desk, but she said it had already been cleared out. The last thing left behind was a small ID card, cracked in half, with his photo faded almost to nothing. I took it, clutching it like a relic, and left. When I got home, he was sitting on the couch, staring at the wall. The television was on showing static, and he didn't even blink. "I stopped by your office," I said. His head turned slowly toward me, too slowly, and he smiled that same wrong smile. "You shouldn't go there," he said. "They're gone now." My throat went dry. "Who's gone?" I whispered. He tilted his head, as if the question confused him, then answered, "Everyone." The lights flickered, I swear, for a second. The air shimmered. And behind him, for a split instant, I saw shadows moving, copying his shape, his posture, his grin, like reflections that had come loose from mirrors. That night, I packed a bag, but before I could leave, the front door opened by itself. He stood there, drenched from the rain, wearing the same clothes as the man on the couch. Two husbands, two faces. One smiled, the other didn't, and both said, perfectly in sync, "Where are you going?" After that, everything blurred. The police didn't believe me. My sister thought I was breaking down from stress. I stayed with her for a while, but the photos started coming. Every morning at 7:14, my phone buzzed a selfie, taken in my kitchen, time-stamped minutes before I woke up. My husband in the frame, and behind him, something taller, wrong, wearing his skin like a costume. On the 7th day, there was a photo of me, asleep, mouth slightly open, a hand reaching toward my face from the edge of the picture. The background was my sister's house. I checked every lock, every window. Nothing disturbed. But that night, when I finally tried to sleep, I felt someone sit on the bed. A cold weight pressed beside me, and a whisper slid into my ear. "You almost made it." I opened my eyes, but the room was dark, too dark, like the shadows had thickened into something alive. And in that blackness, a face floated close to mine, smiling, flickering like a bad signal. "I told you," it said. "You shouldn't have gone there." I screamed, but no sound came. The lights flicked on by themselves, and the bed was empty. My phone buzzed again. New photo. This time it wasn't T in my house or hers. It was a room full of desks, computers, glowing green, faces turned toward the screen. And at the far end, I saw myself sitting there, typing, eyes empty. I dropped the phone, shaking, realizing that whatever they were, they'd finished replacing him, and now they'd taken me, too. Whispered out through a slow fade. "If you ever get a call from your spouse's office, make sure it's really them on the other end. Because sometimes, what comes home wearing their smile is just the next version waiting to replace you." Tis has been someone at my husband's office is pretending to be him. Check your reflection before you turn off the lights tonight. And if it smiles first, don't move it.